Hi. This is a little discussion about the statement, there is unity in diversity. So, uh, this statement, where did it come from initially? Well, I'm not actually sure about that. I always thought I grew up in a thing called the School of Philosophy, and it was something that a statement that I heard through their teachings. I always thought that it came from the Upanishads originally, but I might be wrong in that. Um, I googled it for a little bit and noted that there was a similar kind of quote uh, attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. There was also a book called Unity and Diversity by Jawaharlal Nehru, and also some other quotes around that topic with Maya Angelou. Um, so I'm not entirely sure where the original quote comes from, but I always thought it came originally from the Upanishads. But uh, anyway, the notion that there is unity and diversity means the notion that we find unity and peace by accepting each other's differences, not by all being cookie cutter versions of each other. By being our unique expression and accepting each other for our differences and playing our individual roles in society, it's through that we achieve unity, not by all being the same. And this is something often that you see in communities where the notion of community sometimes gets lost in a sense of the community has to adhere to specific rules, or there's a leader who's sort of got some kind of definition of what the community will be, and through that, there is a sense where some of that idea of diversity gets lost within a community sometimes. Um, Not always, but I have noticed it in various communities that I've been a part of. Um, the notion that you all have to think the same or be the same, but actually it's by accepting each other's differences and allowing for each other's differences that we find unity, not by forcing each other to be the same. If you think of a circle, and I like the notion of a circle in Ho'oponopono, the circle is seen as a sort of representation of the teepee in a way, and in a lot of meetings, you'll sort of gather in a circle, and the reason you gather in a circle because in a circle everybody's equal. Um, but you'll note that if you take somebody out of the circle, then the link of the circle is broken. So the circle only exists by everyone being in their rightful place within the circle. If you take someone out, there is now a gap in the circle. If you take someone out and put someone behind someone else, um, like I say, there's a gap in the circle. Their part is not being played, and they are trying to play someone else's part um, in the same way that someone else is playing their part. They're trying to fulfill someone else's role, but then the link gets broken. Um, in fact, if you have that a lot, then it no longer is a circle at all. If you put people behind each other, meaning they're out of their natural place in the circle, it no longer looks like a circle at all. Um, and one of the things about the circle was the circle the teepee was made. This is just something from Ho'oponopono. The teepee was made with the circle in mind. The spokes of the teepee represent the ancestors, and the apex of the teepee represents the divine. So the notion that our ancestors go all the way back to the divine. And yeah, but I think the circle represents the notion of unity, because it is one line, and yet it is all joined together. Whereas if you have a line, one person is in front of the other, and so on and so forth. The circle represents, I think, that notion of unity and diversity very well. There's a little discussion on unity and diversity. I'm a big fan of that statement, and that means not just accepting not just our differences in opinion, but our differences in culture, our differences in sexual orientation, race, gender, all of these things. That's how we find unity. Not by forcing each other to adhere to our version of what we think the truth is. In fact, with regards to the truth, for me, the truth is something that you can only see from a 360-degree perspective. So we will always colour what we think and project our own ideas onto what we think is the truth. But until we actually see through someone else's eyes, then the truth might have a different colour. Someone once described it as looking at the many faces of a diamond. Generally, when we're looking at it, we only look at one face of it, but it's actually got many faces to it. And so, in essence, the difference between us and divinity is that divinity has the ability to see it all at once. And sure, you can tap into that through meditation and channeling and that kind of thing, and various techniques. We've always got to remember that we're colouring our perspective onto what we're seeing. And sometimes it's very hard to see the perspective of other people when they're very different from you. And we've also got all our conditioning. If we had the conditioning that they had, then we might have a very different perspective, one like them, for example. I once heard Neil Donald Walsh talking about God as being the sum total of everything that exists. And if you look at it like that, then the notion that God is, we are part of that divinity. We are a drop in the ocean, but we are still the ocean, but we're a drop of that ocean. But we're still connected to the ocean. Meaning that, it's only by seeing through every lens and every different perspective that we can really see the truth. For example, the way things get reported in the media, for example, is only one lens that is being applied to a specific event. So, and often there's a lot of bias, and it's what I call the bespeckled lens. It's kind of like like putting a blurry lens over your eyes, because you're only seeing it from the lens of the person reporting on it, and they're only seeing a particular part. Even sometimes if you look at it from a different angle, an accident, for example, you might see something completely different. So yeah, it's about having that universal perspective, and you can only get that in a sense through that notion of the circle, in a way, by accepting other people's differences and other people's opinions. You don't have to agree with them, but it's not about forcing your one either. It's about putting it out there for examination in a way. Doesn't mean you have to change it either. But in this day and time, it's become somehow a bit scary, where a lot of opinions are being censored because a lot of people think that it's dangerous for people who might be a bit naive or uneducated, perhaps, to hear opinions that might sway them in a direction that they don't agree with. And yet, that is like really essentially disempowering people and saying you don't have the ability to decide for yourself. The way to empower people is actually to have it all out there and enable people to make their own decision, and accepting people where they're at, because those decisions will change with experience too. We are not a fixed sculpture, in a sense. I heard this lovely notion that we came into the world as a lump of clay, and as we go through life with all our knocks and bumps, and we get fashioned into a sculpture in the likeness and image of divinity, if you like. So it's a sense that we are ever changing, and actually the universe is in a constant state of flux. Our molecules are all renewing themselves and changing. Our cells are changing constantly. We're breathing in air and breathing in oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide. We're in a constant state of interaction with what's going on around us, so we're constantly evolving and changing. So there's no need to hold fast onto opinions. You might carry one for some time, but the nature of the universe is to expand, and so if we are flowing in tune with nature, our natural inclination is towards growth and expansion. And when we become stagnant and stuck, that's how we become ill, in a sense. And so through our interaction with the rest of the soup, which makes up the divinity, in a sense, that is how we expand. Anyway, that's a little discussion for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you'd like to hear more of these subscribe to Jivana Quantum World. I also have a Facebook page, Jivana Quantum Healing and Holistic Consultation, and an Instagram page, which is at Jivana Quantum Healing. There's also the Ho'oponopono New Zealand Facebook page. So yeah, and please like and share this video and comment below if you enjoyed what was being presented here. Thank you. Thanks for listening.